have a master's degree.
Mhm.
You have to have a master's degree in a related field. So
Right.
it's usually psychology or education. I believe social
Mhm.
work falls under that as well. So you have a master's degree, and then you do X number of hours of practicum or sort of supervised
Sure.
experience clinical hours
Right.
that have to be certified also by a
Mhm.
behavior analyst. And then you sit for an exam as well. It's a pretty extensive exam. It's pretty intense. So you
I
do that.
bet. Yeah.
And then you have to maintain your certification. So each year, every 2 years, you have to recertify. So every year you're sort of doing ongoing continuing education credits to maintain that certification. So it is recognized worldwide. It's based out of the US, the board itself, but it's recognized worldwide. There's behavior analysts.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the first thing we like to ask you is signs of autism. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, what are the signs of autism? And then how young can we diagnose autism with
That's a good
children?
question. That's a good
Yeah.
question. So, and the reason too, like we're not, I'm not qualified as a behavior analyst. I'm not qualified to diagnose. It comes from a
Right.
psychologist. They do a series of different diagnostic measures.
Mhm.
But really the reason I wanted to talk about red flags and
Yeah.
some of the strategies we'll talk about can be
Mhm.
used for any child, right? It's
Yes.
just good teaching. It doesn't, you don't have to have autism to use these strategies, but
Mhm.
it's things for people to be aware of, to think this learner, let's follow this, right?
Right.
Because sometimes I think you have kiddos in your classroom who you think, oh, he's just shy, or he's quiet, he'll come around.
Mm.
Or it's no big, I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm not going to say anything, there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
here, I don't want to be
Yeah.
wrong, right? But it's really just to
Yeah.
flag
Actually,
some.
you are that's exactly my thoughts. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, carry
But
on.
that happens all the time. That
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to say anything because I
Mhm.
could be wrong. And
Mhm.
the gap, what happens is if we can catch a child early, like there's tons of research showing that early intervention is most effective,
Of
right? It's like
course.
anything. If you start an exercise program
Yes.
before, when you're 10 pounds overweight versus 100 pounds overweight, it's going to
Exactly.
be easier to intervene. And so
Mhm.
it's the same with a child with autism. The earlier get in and
Right.
provide support,
Yeah.
the better, more success you're going to have.
Mhm.
And so for in terms of early diagnosis, it is happening sooner and sooner that kids are being diagnosed or flagged even at 18 months of age.
Oh,
Most
wow.
Yeah, most
Oh,
physicians are
okay.
tentative to do that early, but there are flags that you can notice. And I think that uh,
Mhm.
there's a difference between what, a child meeting
Right.
all the diagnostic criteria to say, yes, he's got
Sure.
all of these boxes, versus he's doing some of the things.
Mhm.
Let's watch this a little bit. Let's take some data, let's monitor and
Mhm.
see, are we getting improvements as he gets a little bit older, versus, do they stay the same or do they worsen? In which case we want to
Yes.
really flag it out to be able to provide the right teaching. And maybe
Mhm.
they get more funding. I don't know what it's like where you are, but there are
Mhm.
pockets sometimes of special education funding that can happen for kids
Mhm.
with a specific diagnosis. And sometimes
Sure.
families don't want that diagnosis, right? There's
Yeah.
social stigma. They don't want
Exactly.
to, they don't want that child to have the label. But if they have
Yeah.
the label, they can get money for help, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so flagging early is best, and to
Mhm.
follow. And again, no one's going to leave here today, and I can't do that. Go, oh, don't walk into your principal's office tomorrow and say he's got autism. I
Exactly.
know he does. This lady said
Yeah.
he did all the things. That's not real.
Right.
But to say, let's talk a little bit about this. He's been on my radar. I've been thinking about this kid, and he does a
Mhm.
few of those things. Let's follow that and monitor. And so yeah, pretty early, especially if there's another sibling. So usually, you're more likely, your chances increase significantly to have a second child with autism if you have a first. So
Oh,
the
right.
second child might get diagnosed a little bit sooner because you already go, there's something going on here.
Okay.
Also, it's more prevalent in boys. It's about 4-to-1 in boys than it is to girls.
Mhm.
Their
Is
flags,
it the
they
same
tend.
with ADHD? I learned something about ADHD, no?
Yeah, I don't know about ADHD. Actually, I should know. I
Right.
don't know if it's the same. I think it's
Okay.
more prevalent, right? So the symptoms are a little bit more, not prevalent, I
Mhm.
shouldn't say prevalent, more obvious, right? The boys
Right,
tend to
right.
be affected a bit more. And so I think that's part of that, that
Yeah.
it's diagnosed more readily because they're more affected by it than girls, and they present it slightly differently in terms of their behaviors. So yeah, it is more, they may get diagnosed a little bit more readily, again, if they have another sibling with it as well. So there's certain criteria, you know, that
Yeah.
again, when the family goes for a diagnosis, that they have to meet. In different countries will use different measures.
Sure.
You know, and there's always going to be some areas around communication is always affected. Their social skills are affected, and then behavior. So some oddities in their behaviors as well. Yeah. So that was just around the age.
Yeah. So, Heather, can you give us some like specific examples? So, such as I've heard of it. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, right? I don't know very little for this topic. So, is it like eye contact? Like children, that's one of the signs, right?
It
like
is
children
a big one.
Who don't. Yes.
Yeah, that is a big one. Eye contact is definitely a big one. Limited eye contact and little really any sort of social reciprocity, so social back and forth, right? And again, that where they'll fall into, people say, well, he's just shy, he doesn't like, right? And again, there's cultural differences in that. So again, when I was working in different areas where it's very normal for children not necessarily to look at an adult when they're speaking, right? Their eyes are down, and so we think, oh, but is that potentially normal in that community, but also a sign of autism in this child? So any sort of social pieces. So yes, eye contact's usually affected. They're not doing things like, if I look at something, they're not following my eye gaze where I might look. You know, another even an 18-month-old might be, if my battery. Oh, I didn't even notice that. My kids must have been on my iPad. Shoot, it's good for now. I think we're okay for a little bit. Shoot, I didn't even notice that. But yeah, the eye contact piece, if I, you know, an 18-month-old, if I sort of looked expectantly and I did a shock face and look, they might look in the same direction, whereas may not do any of that. They're not pointing and gesturing, right? They're not pulling you to things, which is pretty common at early childhood for sure. So that social back and forth with the eye contact. The delayed speech is obviously the big one. Often children on the spectrum will, with autism, will maybe show some language skills and then regret. Parents will say, you know, he was saying mama, he was saying dada.
Oh,
he was saying
right.
He was saying some of those things, and then he just stopped. 18 months old, he just stopped.
Okay.
That happens. I wish someone was home. I would yell at them to go get my battery, but
it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. You can. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, you can go get a charger. Yeah, of course.
Okay, I just don't want to lose you mid-sentence if I do. I'm so sorry, Iris. Give me 1 second.
It's all right. It's okay. It's okay. You can go get your charger. Yeah, I'll wait for you. Back. Oh, Lele is watching. Hi, Lele. Hello, Lele. Hello, my dear. Hi, Ma.
Hi.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Oh, sorry about that. My kids must have been on my iPad and I didn't even notice.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, being a mom is tough.
There we go. Okay.
Sure.
Good?
Yeah.
Great.
All good.
So yeah, they're not doing the normal sort of back and forth, you know, even expecting behavior. So if I had a child, you know, even a really young kiddo, if I was on the ground, I'm playing and ready to tickle it, I stop and I wait. They're going to be sort of as a like, hey, keep going here, right?
Right.
So I'm going to be doing some of those behaviors.
Okay.
The delayed speech, the eye contact, the gestures, even the babbling you may not have. So typical children, you know, they're babbling, they're making those coos and caws, they're they're sort of doing those sounds. Okay. May not have any of that sort of chatting or babbling behavior. And that you may not see some of that when they come to school, right? So if there's teachers here, by the time they get to school, they're like, well, we missed that babbling stage. They're not babies. They're coming to us in, you know, their grade 4, they're 4 or 5 years old. But they still aren't doing some of that chatting behavior, right? They're just not communicating. They're not doing 2-word combinations, those sorts of things.
Do they still play at school? Do they still play with other kids?
Right. So the difference with autism too is to be aware of is there's certainly that range. So that's why it's called a spectrum. So there is children on the higher end of the spectrum who they may do parts of the behavior, right? They may have some language, but they don't play, or they may play but not have some language, right? But then you have children on the other end of the spectrum who do all of the things, where their play is severely affected, their social severely affected, their communication severely affected. So when I say play, they often play very differently. So
of course,
you know, their play is like organized play. They're lining up their toys. Maybe they're taking the wheels of a car and spinning them over and over, or like hockey cards here, like they're maybe flapping the cards or lining the cards up. Maybe they're stacking them, but they're not trading the cards back and forth and having communication with their friend, right? So the play is very different. Yeah, there's not a lot of image sort of, it's more like parallel play. So maybe they'll play beside a peer. And again, that range is, I shouldn't say the range is really there. I've had kids I've worked with who have great play skills, but maybe don't have the social skills to initiate that. So instead of tapping their friend saying, hey, do you want to come play tag? They punch their friend and take off. And then the friend's not chasing them. They're like, I don't get why you're not chasing me. But they think they've initiated play. Right. Yeah, so play is very affected as well. All the social pieces are quite affected.
Yeah. Now that while I'm talking to you, I keep running in my head, like whether I have met any kid with like some signs. Like I'm still like running through my head. And then I'm not too sure, because just like you said, like some kids maybe just quiet, and then in the Asian culture, like, you know, kids are not taught to make eye contact. And when you make an eye contact, that means you're rude. Like when you're talking to like a teacher or an older person, you need to lower your eye contact even. So
they love it there. But again, you probably have, so if you think of other things, like they're often, so their body, when we talk about the behaviors may be quite different. So kids on the spectrum, you may see some sort of odd movements or odd sort of even just physical movement. So some children do a lot of looking out the side of their eye. So they might bring something up to their face and look at it over here. A lot of flapping and moving of objects. It could be objects in their body. So sometimes you'll get kids at body rock, or there's lots of sort of finger movements. You get lots of sort of happen. You may have children that flap things. So again, you know, they would take a cord of something and just be wanting to flap it all the time. Right? And so again, it's to them, that might be their play, might be how they calm themselves when agitated. But that's the movement that they're doing. So you may think, I used to have a kid who did that. And, you know, some behaviors are not diagnostic. So again, it's not, I'm not going to say on some of the testing, you know, does he toe walk? But a lot of children with autism on the spectrum will walk on their toes a lot, right? Or they do sort of, you'll hear a lot of kids who, I had one mom say, he's just the happiest baby. He just laughs all the time, but at nothing, right? So he's just in the room by laughs, like, oh, he's the happiest baby. He's so easy. He laughs all the time, but there's nothing going on. The kid's just in the room sort of laughing.
Yeah, so that is a bit creepy,
right?
That's worrying.
So that might get overlooked a little bit. So it's not any one thing. Again, if you've got a happy kid in your class who's laughing, or, you know, the toe walking could happen for other reasons. I don't know. Maybe, you know, I'm not medical by any means, but maybe he's got some sore calves and that makes it feel better. I don't know. But put all the things together. If he's doing that, and he's got some sensory issues. So like, you know, a drop of water. I've got lots of kids I work with the littlest bit of water. They can be filthy dirty, but the little bit of water or juice or something spills on them and they got to strip and change all their clothes. Again, not diagnostic, but things you'll see go, you know what, this kid every time in class, like he's fine most of the days. He listens, he follows instructions, but man, he loses it if he gets water on him. And there's no way, like he just can't sit still. He's always moving in class. Like he's always sort of rocking his body. So you put the things together,
right?
Then you might think, okay, let's see that, you know, if What else? Let's
Okay,
think.
now I can think of a kid.
Right.
Yeah. Now I can think of more than one.
I've got a repetitive speech too. I saw a little guy yesterday, where, you know, as much as I tried to bring the topic back around to something else, he's super into Mario Brothers and Bowser. It's all he wanted to talk about. And, you know, I would change it, say, oh, you know, somehow he would say Bowser was big and strong. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I'm big and strong. I saw a big, strong man at the beach. Do you go to the beach? And try to change the topic, sort of bring it to something else. And he's right back to Bowser, Mario Brother, like, so repetitive speech. They may do some scripted behavior, right? So they may have watched a Disney movie and you hear them sort of repeating parts of that movie or the whole movie over and over.
And even then those kids cannot regulate emotions as well, right? I have a kid who is like 9 and still cries in class.
Yeah, that can be. And it's not something that can't be taught. That can definitely be taught. But if you think they don't have the language skills too, right? Like, you know, even grown adults, even completely functioning grown adults who don't have a diagnosis may have a problem, right? We've all seen a man at, you know, someone get cut off in traffic and he's yelling and screaming. Well, he's not managing emotions either. He hasn't found a way to self-regulate. But then you think of a child maybe on the spectrum who has very challenging language issues and sort of doesn't know how to process what's happening because he doesn't understand social cues, right? So he doesn't understand why somebody doesn't want him to sit right beside them. You know, so there's definitely some emotional parts to that, but I think it's all the other deficits that contribute to that. It's not necessarily diagnostic as well, but certainly it's those pieces that they don't have the social skills, the language skills aren't there, awareness of environment and that sort of thing. You think, wow, why is he freaking out? Like, what's happening here? And that behavior of maybe getting upset or crying also works in some way, right? So if he's crying, let's say he gets upset in class and he gets, you know, something's happened, I don't know what, but something's happened, someone's knocked over his book and he cries, right? And then the teacher comes over and says, here, let me help you pick them up. And why don't you go sit over here with me and let those, you know, well, then the crying also continues to work for him in some way, right? So
and that kid got that. I remember he came to class quite late and then his notebook is wet and then he just couldn't get over it. And we were saying, it's okay, don't worry, we'll give you another book. Like, oh no, like he was so mad and like he was swearing in Thai.
Can't let it go.
Like he just couldn't get over it. And then he's 9, so and he's quite big and like physically quite strong. So the other kids were pretty scared of him, like when whenever he does that. So I understand, like, you know, you mentioned it earlier, a lot of parents, like even in countries like Canada, right, some parents don't really want to get their children like diagnosed because of the stigma. So here is even worse. Parents don't talk about it. Parents just don't talk about it. Even if they want to ask, they don't want to ask publicly. They are going to send a message. And so that kid, for example, we were telling the parents like, but then like as educators, what can we say, right? Because if this happened, we can't tell them, oh, you know, your kid needs to see a psychiatrist or psychologist. We can't do that. So in that case, Heather, do you have any like tips for like teachers?
Well, sometimes I kind of like agree to be like exploring it by saying, I hope that we're wrong here. Like, I hope that we're wrong and there's nothing and it's a phase he's going through or, you know, that we're wrong. But let's just look at it for a little bit, even if it's 3 days of taking data, right? Like, even if it's 3 days, okay, how many outbursts does he have in a day? You know, and it's probably affecting everybody's quality of life. So it's not just that student, like when we say, okay, like he's just getting really upset and we put it on him and we say, you know, maybe he needs to see a psychologist, whatever that looks like. We think if the family's not telling you and you see 5 outbursts a day in school, think of what they're dealing with at home. It's probably happening all the time.
So he cries all the time at home.
Right. And so mom's probably at her wit's end. Siblings are at like, oh my goodness, his brother, you know, he's driving me. So how do we, you know, talk about overall family quality of life to say, if we help him it's going to help y'all. It's going to help everybody. Like maybe mom can go have a job because on the weekends she wants to have, but she can't because she has to be home managing and working with her son, or, so the overall, I approach it from overall family quality of life and say, I hope we're wrong on this, and, or maybe not. Let's hope we get the right answer and get diagnosed, help he needs. But, go with me. I try to get parents to say, let's go with me for 3 days. Like, can you just take data for me for 3 days on, how many times does he actually ask you for something? Or how many times does he have an outburst? Or how many times does he hit his brother? And see if that's where he should be developmentally, right? A 2-year-old's going to hit their brother. A 2-year-old's going to cry X number of times a day. That's okay if they're 2. But they're chronologically 9.
9,
2. We've got that big gap.
Exactly.
And say, look at overall family quality of life. And then explore. And if the data shows us, we'll continue to go there. And I think in a lot of ways, parents already know in their gut, I want to say, in some ways or something,
Yeah.
And just being heard. Sometimes we avoid thinking, oh, this parent's going to lose their mind. They're going to be angry with me if I say it. But I've had parents literally where I say, you know what, I want to have a look at this. And they will just fall apart and bawl and go, I knew there was something new, having that talk and knowing that will lead them to be able to get the right supports and services. It's not judging them in any way. And again, that's definitely a stigma. And I know in other countries we've sort of come past that. I hope in a lot of ways here in Canada. But it's nothing mom did, right? Really being reassuring about that. It's nothing that she did during during childbirth. It's not on her. It's not, it's there's no judgment here. It is what it is. This is their child, and how do we best support them?
That's great advice. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. And also, now that you said about like moms, that's another thing, because people just blame the moms. It's like, if you have Down syndrome baby because you're old. Oh, if you have this because you smoke during the pregnancy. Oh, you drink because it's just like all moms.
Right. I mean, some of those are real too, right? Like fetal alcohol syndrome, that's real. Like, that's, or there are certain things that, that are genetic. And then I'm not saying that autism isn't, I don't mean that, but it's not that, there's some that are tied to, again, what a parent does. It's, as I said, like fetal alcohol syndrome, but autism isn't one of them. So, it's not like she, didn't sleep enough during her pregnancy, or she didn't love them enough when they were first born, didn't hug them enough, or she didn't breastfeed, and that doesn't matter. And so just being supportive and that usually gets people on board for me, and it's never going to be something they want to hear. But
that's great advice. Thank you. I think you also sort of like answer our next topic, which is simple introductory strategies to help.
Sure.
I think you already,
Well, one place I always recommend starting for sure is, it's really just a simple term. It's called pairing. And often I think when kids come to school, we think, okay, like he's here to learn. We're going to do the academics. He's got to sit down when I tell him to sit down. We're going to do these things. And then we have emotional outbursts, and the child's flipping the table, or he's storming out of the room. And no one's getting anywhere with that. He's not learning. Teacher's frustrated. Other kids are maybe getting hurt or scared of them. So there's no point in that. And so starting with pairing is really just how do we build relationships? We already said that for autism, there's definitely that social disconnect. And in pairing, I really want to be the child that, when I come in a room, the child runs to me, right? I want them to want to be near me. And if we think of ourselves, how do we want to be near people? It's the people that are good to us. It's the people that give us things. It's the people that,
say nice to us.
Are nice to us. It's not, you don't want to walk in a room and go, oh, here's that guy again. I didn't want to see him. Like he put me off last time, or last time I saw him, he made me pick up the garbage, So, so by pairing, it's really just delivering. One way is to deliver lots of things the child likes without expectations. So, and it's not taking things away. So for example, if I'm blowing bubbles for a child, I blow bubbles and they stop. But if I give them an iPad to play with, how do I give it to them again? First, I have to take it away. So I'm taking their good stuff. I'm giving it back, but I have to take all their things first. Well, they're not going to like me, but things with natural stop. So if I give a candy, they eat it, it's gone. They need me again. I give a candy, they eat it, it's gone. They need me again. Right. That's why you keep coming back to work. You keep getting paid every 14 days. So you keep coming back. So, if I had to take away your money and then give it to you again, well, that's pointless. Like, I don't really care for you so much. Yeah, you gave it back,
Yeah.
but you took it in the
Yeah.
first place. So if we think of things
Mm.
that have natural stops, so those kinds of things, edibles, even if I was to keep the iPad and I let the child sit and I press play and they watch and then I pause and then I press play and then I pause, so that
Mm.
I'm giving all the good stuff versus I have to take it away from them every time.
Mhm.
They're going to soon go, hey, where's that woman? Where'd she go? I like her. She gives me stuff, right? So pairing it's a simple concept, but and the other one I find really simple with pairing is doing the things they already like to do with them, so alongside them. So I will often sit, honestly, and if the child's sitting beside me and he does have autism and is doing lots of body rocking and maybe some vocal stims, they make a lot of vocals, I might sit beside them and do that. Right. And they look and go, who's this lady? She gets me, because no one else is doing that in their world.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
wow, she's well, I don't know what she's doing, but she's doing it with me and I kind of like her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that connection. It's the same if we showed up here today and we both had on the same top. I might not know you at all, but we have an instant connection to go, hey, we're similar. I like you because we have the same taste. We like the same things. She's kind of cool. So I sit down beside the kid with autism who wants to be in his own little world and start doing his thing. And he go, she's kind of cool. I like her. We're connected in some way. So doing the things they like to do alongside them.
Right.
And then also doing the things they like to do in novel ways. So I had one kiddo who he loved music and he loved Play-Doh. So one day I took what cymbals are, like those two things you bang your cymbals together,
cymbals, yes,
play music. I took a cymbal and I squished his Play-Doh with the cymbal, and it's like his mind blew up. He was like, oh my God, she's amazing. Like I took his two favorite things and put them together. Right?
Oh, okay.
I don't know what's happening right now, but she's really great, because I took his two things and showed him a new way to use those. And all of a sudden he was seeking me out and wanting to be around me, where normally he just wants to, play with his Play-Doh by himself. He would give it to me and wait for me to do something with it. And now we have a moment to connect and do some things together. Whereas normally, as I said, he would take it and want to just be on his own with that.
Right.
So pairing's a really important step that I think we, they show up on, this kid doesn't usually come. He comes on Monday, let's get him to work and sit to the table and do your math. And you just go down this rabbit hole of I'm the adult, a fight, and we're going to have a challenging moment. So I think it's important to take that time every day with your student to pair and repair, just like a partner. Like you go on dates to reconnect and repair and have at the end of the day, how was your day, to connect, and don't show up first thing and they walk in the door and say, hey, take out the garbage. Right. Yeah. So don't have your student arrive day one and say, you know what, you weren't here on Friday because we had bad behavior. So Monday, go do your math that you missed on Friday. Forget what happened, reconnect, pair. They walk in with that Mario shirt on or whatever it is they're really into and talk about it. Wear the same shirt one day. He loves Spider-Man. As a teacher, show up with the Spider-Man shirt on. And all of a sudden he's like, what's going on here, right? Yeah. Why not? Parenting's a really important part that I think we get into this mindset of we have to teach. Well, you're still teaching. It's just you're teaching social goals, you're teaching communication, you're not into the academic, but no one's learned them anyway when we get into those battles.
One question, Heather. So when you're talking about this, is it just these autistic like on their own, or is it in a mainstream classroom where you integrate them in, like, so sort of like an inclusion?
Yeah. Both. So, I mean, I've had certainly arranged children are pulled out of classrooms sometimes if they really struggle with learning in a larger group environment. Maybe they're pulled out for parts of the day.
Yeah, they might. These children tend to get like overwhelmed easier than other children, right?
Yeah, they can. There's a lot of distractions. So, right now I can focus on you, even though, I can hear the birds chirping outside, the leaves are blowing my window and I can hear that, but it's not distracting from me being able to hear you. Yeah. And for a child with autism, they may be looking even at the teacher, but they're hearing all of this stuff. And the words are like, what, they're not getting any of that. So they're attending to the fact they can feel, what they're wearing or the smells that might be in the room. So the sensory might be too much, not hearing the voices because of all those pieces. So definitely it could be very useful for pulling children out to do some one-to-one for parts of the day. so that when they are in the classroom, they can attend better and be able to focus and learn. And it might be helpful too in terms of the reinforcers. So, again, if you're in a classroom and you're trying to teach a bigger topic and the child needs to learn quickly, you can deliver, reinforcers and praise and all those things more easily if you're in a one-to-one. But that said, one of the big deficits is social skills, right?
Yes.
So you can't really learn. I've tried time and time again to sort of contrive or make up like a play scenario with myself and a child. And I think I'm kind of fun, but it's not ever going to be the same as, being on the playground when someone steals their soccer ball. And do they explode, or do they know how to join in when their friends are playing tag? I'm trying it with them in a one-to-one sort of classroom. It won't translate the same. So ultimately you do have to, or you should try to get back into a more natural sort of learning environment with the kids. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have special ed classes generally, or kids are integrated?
Integrated, because British Council is a language school, so I only see them 2 hours a week. So it's very little that we can do to help the children. Yeah. So, and then this 2 hours, I can't just focus on just one kid. I still have to teach the other 15 of them. Right. So yeah.
What's the age group?
We start from age 6, 7. That is primary 1. Like 7 to 8 is primary 2, and then 8 to 9 is primary 3, and then like so on and so forth. Okay.
So you have every range. So yeah, I mean, and you're specifically on language.
English,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
English only, yeah.
Yeah, and I think certainly for kids on the spectrum, thinking about, if they're not speaking English at home, where you may see more sort of outbursts or challenging behaviors, because who wants to be somewhere where they don't understand anything, right?
Yeah.
So you think of your learner who maybe is either shutting down completely too, or is out of the room all the time, or getting in trouble all the time.
Yeah.
It might be some escape behaviors that, if you sent me down in an advanced calculus class, pretty soon I'm going to be doing some bad behavior to get out of there too, because I won't understand any of it. It's going to be way over my head. And I'm going to, if all of a sudden I just knock my books out and you say, okay, get to the office, you don't have to be here right now. Then I'm going, great, awesome. I just knocked over my books and I got out of this class I didn't like, right? Yeah. Didn't understand any of it. So if you think you're teaching specifically English, and that at home, maybe the family isn't speaking English to the child, and they're only understanding 2% of what you're saying, they're going to want to be out of that classroom pretty quickly, because it's like, this stinks. I don't understand what's happening. And so you might see problem behavior, and when we say, okay, well, that's because he has autism, he has problem behavior. But it's not. It's because he doesn't understand what's happening. And when he does the bad behavior, he gets out of the environment he dislikes. So yeah, that might be part of some of the challenges.
And then now that you said it, that kid becomes more and more, clearer the way he behaves. Some on his good days, he would come and talk to me for no reason, and then he would show me like, oh, could come and feel my t-shirt, because he really likes the feel of his t-shirt. And then he would come and show me his new pen or something. But on the days that he just switch off, and then I start crying. Right. Oh gosh, like, poor kids.
Yeah. And I mean, the only advice I would give for some of that is if like the day's starting off rough for him, because maybe he's not had a great sleep, or maybe he got in an argument with his mom before he left to school that day, or whatever it might be. If he's going to have a rough day, I would give him a way out before the problem happens. So what I mean by that, if you tell him like, look, early on, like, instead of waiting, so you're like, no, come on, we gotta stay in class, it's in 2 hours or whatever, an hour-long class, and he keeps escalating, the behavior escalates and gets worse and worse and worse, and finally you say, you know what, you need to leave the class, go to the office, or go for a walk or whatever. I can't, it's because the other students can't learn, so you're gonna make them leave or something, or go to the back of the room, and when it's up here, the behavior's already up here, he's learned the worst behavior works for me. So instead I might say at the beginning of the class, buddy, if you want to take a break, just let me know, raise your hand, and you can go for a walk. Right. So it's an easy out. He doesn't need to, and because either way, I keep coming back to, either way, he's not learning. He's either going to get upset and get out of class, or he's going to
Exactly.
raise his hand and say, I need a break and get out of class.
Yeah.
But one,
Yeah.
we teach night tasking, and one, we teach
Mhm.
problem behavior works.
Yeah.
Right. Either way, he's
Mhm.
not learning he's not learning the lesson. But
Exactly.
then we can gradually introduce and say, yeah, I know you want to go for a walk, but give me 2 more minutes. Great. I know
Yeah.
what you want to go for a walk, but just write this sentence and then you can go. So
Yeah.
we'll get back to work. The goal is not to have the child wandering through the school all day long.
Yeah.
That's not,
Yeah.
we'll get him back to work, but right now just getting upset works to get him out of the hard stuff. He'll continue to get upset. So we
Yes.
have to give him another skill to do that. Again, whether it's raising his hand or maybe he gets, 3 tokens, and every time use those 3 tokens, once he uses
That's
all
a
3,
great idea.
like it's like get a full free card. But once he uses all 3, he needs to stay. So he better choose wisely, right? So
exactly.
and I think we forget that sometimes. I think the kids with special needs, it's like, no, they still have a right to get out of stuff they don't want to do. Like we all have a right to say no to things. So he should have a way to say that. But then teach him over time. You do have to follow the rules of the class, and we can shape that up. We can get better behavior happening over time, but you have to start somewhere and letting him know that his words work more than the problem behavior works. So he says, can I get a break? Say, great, buddy, go take a break. See you in 5.
Yeah, now that you said it, actually just out of my like intuition, like later on, after he did it a couple of times, later on I give him a choice. Now, do you want to do it here, or do you want to go do it in the other room?
Perfect.
Because there's no one there. You can just go do it there. And then he chose to stay.
Perfect.
So, yeah, so there were a couple of times like that. So, well, now that I get this validation from you, now I feel a lot better, because I always feel with those special education needs children, I always feel like, oh, I could have done more. I could have done more. I could have done more. There's always honestly, this
choice is one of the best things you can do, and I'll just quickly tell you why on that. So I always give this example. If my boss says to me, okay, Heather, like we have to have a pretty serious meeting, like we need to talk, I'm going, oh crap, this is going to be bad, right? But if she says, listen, do you want to come, do you want me to come by your office Friday, Friday afternoon, or whatever, or do you want to come to my office on Monday morning? Either way, I know that meeting's going to be bad, but in my head, I think, okay, Friday afternoon, it's her office. I can quickly sneak out of there afterwards. No one needs to see me. Or Monday morning in my office means people are going to see her come in. I have to sit there all day long. It could be really bad news. So, but either way, the meeting's going to stink. But my like fight or flight, my fight or flight to say, you know what, I'm not feeling very good. I can't make that meeting. Or, my way to get out of it starts to change. So for those kiddos, it doesn't matter how he does the work. Let's just agree. Let's get him to do it. So we can say, you know what, buddy, do you want to do your test with, a green marker, or do you want to do it with a pencil? Do you want to sit beside me, or do you want to sit beside your friend? Do you want to, it doesn't really matter how they get the work done. I might say to the kids, okay, listen, guys, you got to fold the laundry. Now, do you want to do it right now after dinner, and then we'll go to the park? Or do you want to fold it tonight while you watch a show? Right? Yeah. Either way, you're folding the laundry. Exactly. And then say, you know what, let's wait tonight while we watch a show. Great. I don't care how they do it. They did it. Yeah. So, but it makes them, if I give choice, you're more likely to buy in. Yeah. And that's the same with kids. If you're eating something, you're going to eat, your breakfast. Do you want to eat at the kitchen table, or do you want to come over here and sit on whatever? I don't care how you eat it. It really, as long as you eat. Yeah. It's a very good, but making sure you offer that choice before the problem behavior happens. Right. So I don't not show up to work, and then my boss says, well, do you want to come here today? And then like, when I don't show up, I get more choices. You don't want that to happen. So you don't want the student to have problem behavior. And then you say, do you want to go to the other room and do it? Yeah. Right. You want to realize he probably doesn't want to do it. So before I even see the problem behavior, I'm going to say, buddy, I know you don't like to write paragraphs, but say that's what we're going to do. Do you want to do it in here or in here? Before he escalates. Yes. Otherwise, you're just going to reinforce and make the problem behavior happen more. Yeah. You're doing it right. That sounds great.
Thank you. Yeah. With always like these children, I always feel, I could have done more, or, I didn't do enough to help them. And because they are all like misunderstood, and Yeah, and then that age as well. I think that's the age around 8 and 9. That's when they start to feel like, a little bit cool for school. And then that's
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they
yeah,
feel like, boys against girls, and oh, we don't
yeah,
sit together, we don't hold hands. That's the age as well. So it's, yeah,
yeah.
it's a bit tricky.
Well, I mean, I would say that if they've come
Mm,
to you at that point, I get that, the feeling of I could have done more. I've had lots of kids where I feel the
mm,
same way, but at the
right.
same time, they've had a lot of teachers before you, so
Yes.
it doesn't land just on you for sure.
Yeah.
And then, as I said, if you can just teach them to want to learn, like at the end of the day,
Mm,
they may not learn a ton of academics in this amount of time that you have them,
mm,
but
mm.
if you can pair yourself in such a
Yeah,
way that, coming to school is a positive thing, bringing my books is a
exactly.
positive thing, looking to
Yeah.
the front of the classroom is a positive thing, raising
Yeah.
my hand up for help is a good thing, and teaching them
Mhm.
to the learning readiness skills so that then they
Yes,
can start to learn new abilities and not just be
sure.
sort of wanting to get out of school all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Or like even some social skills, that would be great, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing I try to tell parents and other teachers as well. So it is not like jet set important to pass exams, because there
Right.
are also like a lot of other important things for a child to learn in a classroom. So yeah,
Yeah.
don't be too over ambitious.
Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
that's definitely true. I've had parents where they say, I wanted
Mhm.
to teach him how to code or teach him how to, he's going to have
Yeah.
great math skills. I'm like, but he can't even request the things he wants.
Yeah,
When a
yeah,
friend,
exactly.
if kids picking on him at school and he doesn't know how to say, leave me alone. Right.
Yeah,
Or he
yeah,
can't find his pencil and he doesn't know how to say, where's my pencil? But you want me
exactly.
to teach him how to do,
Yeah.
long division. Like how is that helpful? So yeah,
Mhm.
learning core language is certainly going to be huge for the kids on the spectrum. That
Right.
will lead them to do things down the road.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Heather.
no problem.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't see any questions yet. If there are questions
okay,
that I cannot answer, can I bother you a bit
please.
more?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, please.
yeah. I mean, not
They're
today,
welcome.
maybe later on when there are more comments about this.
Yeah, no, and even
This
just
is really
questions.
educational.
Good. And again, it's my role is certainly not to diagnose by any means, but if
Right.
you have someone who's watching and they think afterwards, like, I'm not sure about this. He does this. Is this something I
Mhm.
should be worried about? Or, or
Mhm.
I tried this and it's kind of working, but I could do a little bit more. Again, I can't speak to
Mhm.
kids. I don't know, but general ideas and concepts, I'm
Sure.
happy to help with if someone has a question afterwards. Yeah, feel free to reach out.
All right. Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you
No
so much for
problem.
your time. And then
Hey,
it's your Saturday morning, isn't it?
it's my Saturday
Saturday
morning. I'm
morning. Oh, oh.
off to go watch a soccer match.
Oh, right. One of the boys playing.
One of the boys playing soccer. Yeah.
Oh,
So we'll go
okay.
do that.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks,
Thank you
Iris.
very
Good
much.
to
It
meet
is so
you. Okay.
educational, and then yeah, and then I get a validation from you, so I feel a lot better.
No, you're on the right track for sure. And again, don't
Yeah,
hesitate if you're something I'm not sure about this, just ask. But no, you're
sure.
definitely doing some great stuff.
Mhm. Thank you, Heather.
Great. Thanks.
Thank
See ya.
you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.